There's something about Christmas in New York. It even makes lies sparkle. The lights, the laughter, the smell of cinnamon and secrets. It's all part of the show. My wife thought she was hosting a simple dinner, or just family and friends. She even invited her ex, smiling like the past was harmless. She said, "Please, Preston, be mature about it." I paused. I smiled because she had no idea what was coming. While she was busy inviting her past, I had already invited the truth. And when the doors opened that night, she didn't just meet her ex. She met the one person who knew everything. One dinner, 4 souls, and a truth too big for anyone to swallow. By the end of that Christmas night, nothing about love, loyalty, or forever would ever look the same again. The morning before Christmas felt rehearsed, like the city itself was holding its breath. Our penthouse smelled of cinnamon and imported pine, the kind Savannah insisted on flying in from Vermont. Staff moved quietly, placing candles, polishing silver. She loved details, presentation, illusion, control. I watched her from the study as she arranged the name cards for dinner. 12 seats, each one like a promise about to break. Her handwriting was elegant, looping, almost fragile. And there it was, Chase Donovan. She hesitated over the name just for a heartbeat, then smiled. Tiny, nervous, guilty. The same smile I'd seen the first time she lied. "Everything has to be perfect tonight," she said. I nodded. It will be. She didn't know that perfection had already left our marriage. It would return this evening not as harmony, but as revelation, because Christmas Eve wasn't about the guest she expected. It was about the one she never imagined. New York hides nothing, it only pretends to. Every window is a confession wrapped in glass. Every taxi a whisper speeding through traffic. As I drove downtown that morning, I felt the city studying me. Headlines, memories, ghosts. Somewhere out there, Chase Donovan still existed, smiling his perfect smile, telling half-truths to half-listening investors. Savannah once said he made her feel alive. Maybe that's what I did wrong. I gave her stability instead of sparks. But sparks burn fast, empires take time. And I was always an empire man. When I returned home, our chef was testing the menu. Savannah hummed carols, pretending the past wasn't coming to dinner. I almost believed her. Almost. The city below flickered like a conscience I couldn't quiet. By midnight, it would echo with someone else's name. It started snowing. Not the cinematic kind, but the heavy, muffled storm that traps sound and truth. Savannah's old perfume drifted through the hallway as I passed her closet. Inside, boxes labeled Donovan Era still hid behind new designer bags. She'd never thrown them out. I found a photo, younger Savannah laughing in Chase's arms. A vacation in Malibu, I think. Her handwriting on the back, "My forever summer." I placed it back carefully. Forever is a word that ages quickly. Later, I poured whiskey and stood by the window. 12 floors below, Christmas lights blinked like warnings. I rehearsed my lines for the night. Calm, polite, unreadable. If ghosts were coming, I'd greet them with champagne. Evening fell like velvet. The penthouse glowed, crystal glasses, gold cutlery. Everything Savannah loved about appearances. Guests arrived first. Our partners, a senator's wife, the Bennetts from next door. Laughter filled the air like expensive perfume. Then the elevator chimed. Savannah's breath caught before she smiled. "Chase," she whispered. He entered wearing charm-like armor, tan, confident, the same easy grin from the magazines. He hugged Savannah just long enough to rewrite history. "Preston," he said, shaking my hand. "Still running the world, I see." "Trying to," I replied. Every eye watched us, the old flame and the man who stole his spotlight. But the real story hadn't walked in yet. Dinner shimmered with tension. Chase told jokes. Savannah laughed a little too brightly. Under the table, her hand trembled against the linen. I poured wine for everyone, steady, deliberate. When the elevator chimed again, she turned, puzzled. "We weren't expecting anyone else," she murmured. I smiled. Actually, we were. The doors opened and Alexandra Donovan stepped out. Elegant, poised, the kind of beauty that didn't beg for attention. It commanded silence. Chase's face drained of color. Savannah blinked, realizing too late that the past comes dressed for dinner too. "Alex," Chase stammered. She kissed the air near his cheek. "Merry Christmas, darling," surprise. Silence followed her greeting, thick, electric. Savannah looked from Chase to me, connecting dots she didn't want to see. I raised my glass. To truth, I said softly. Alexandra took her seat opposite Savannah. The chandelier light caught the diamonds at her wrist. They sparkled like confession. She smiled, calm. Dangerous. Thank you for inviting me, Preston. It's been far too long since we've all shared a table. Chase's jaw tightened. Savannah's fork trembled. I tasted my wine, oak, smoke, and satisfaction. The night had officially begun. Not a war, not yet. Just the quiet, civilized beginning of revelation. The sound of silver against porcelain filled the silence. Our chef presented roasted duck glazed in honey bourbon. Savannah complimented the aroma but didn't taste it. Across the table, Chase kept glancing at Alexandra, as if she were a ghost he'd forgotten how to fear. "Beautiful evening," she said, voice smooth as jazz. "Yes," Savannah replied, "unforgettable, I'm sure." I let the conversation float between them like a test. Outside, the city glowed beneath the snow, and for a moment, Manhattan looked holy. Inside, 3 people prayed to different gods: ego, redemption, and truth. When the waiter poured wine, Chase's hand brushed Savannah's wrist. "Small, quick, enough," Alexandra noticed. She always did. I raised my glass again. "To second chances," I said. Savannah froze mid-smile. No one answered. Candle flames flickered as if listening. Savannah tried to steer conversation toward charity events and holiday plans, but every sentence landed crooked. Alexandra leaned back, studying the tree's reflection in her glass. "Preston," she said softly, "you've outdone yourself. Even your secrets shine." Chase coughed. Savannah dropped her napkin. I smiled. Alexandra appreciates honesty. She finds it refreshing. "Hard to find in this room," she murmured. For the first time, I saw Savannah truly look at her. Curiosity mingled with unease. Maybe she recognized a woman who had stopped pretending. Maybe she saw herself 5 years from now. The orchestra playlist changed to something slower. Every note echoed the truth we hadn't spoken yet. When dessert arrived, dark chocolate soufflé, Savannah stood. Her voice trembled beneath its grace. "To friendship," she began, "and to letting go of the past." Alexandra lifted her glass. "To remembering what the past teaches us." Chase swallowed hard. I simply nodded. The clinking of glasses sounded like fragile hearts cracking. Savannah sat down, eyes glossy. She whispered, "Why did you really invite her?" I leaned close enough for only her to hear. "Because every truth needs a witness." Her breath caught. Outside, thunder rolled faintly above the snow. Even heaven couldn't keep quiet tonight. Chase began telling a story about the old days in Los Angeles, back when Savannah was still modeling. Everyone laughed politely except Alexandra. She smiled, tight, knowing. "Funny," she said. "How men remember half the story. Do you want me to finish it, Chase?" He froze. She continued anyway, describing a trip he'd told Savannah he spent alone. He hadn't been. He'd been with her. Savannah's eyes widened. The table fell silent except for the faint ticking of the clock over the fireplace. I felt the air shift. The exact second illusion surrendered to fact. Savannah set down her glass carefully, as if fragile things could still be saved. But truth never asks for permission. "You're lying," Chase snapped. Alexandra laughed softly. "Darling, if I lied as often as you, I'd forget which version to defend." Savannah turned to him. "Is it true?" He said nothing. Silence can be a confession. I stayed still, watching everything unravel like silk pulled from a spool. Years of perfection unthreaded in one careless evening. Finally, Savannah whispered, "You told me she meant nothing." Alexandra's eyes softened. "Oh, I meant plenty. Just not enough to keep him faithful." The chandelier flickered as if agreeing. No one moved. Even the city paused outside the glass. And in that stillness, the Christmas dinner I'd planned for truth finally began to taste like it. No one spoke for nearly a minute. Outside, snow blurred the skyline into watercolor. Inside, Savannah's breath came shallow, and Chase traced the rim of his glass as if it could give him courage. "I think," I said quietly, "that honesty is the most expensive gift you can give at Christmas." Savannah's eyes glistened. "Then why does it feel like a punishment?" "Because truth doesn't arrive wrapped in bows. It kicks the door open." Alexandra set her napkin down, elegant even in battle. "Maybe we should stop pretending any of this was about dinner." Lightning flashed across the clouds, white and merciless. For the first time that night, I felt something close to pity. Savannah looked at me. Preston, how long have you known? I met her gaze. Long enough to understand what loyalty costs. Chase shifted. You planned this? I planned dinner, I said. Truth handled the rest. The guests around us pretended to check their phones, grateful for distraction. Only Alexandra smiled. He didn't plan a scene, Chase. He planned closure. Savannah pressed her hands together. I just wanted peace. Peace doesn't grow where you bury honesty, I answered. Her tears came silent, uninvited but overdue. The snow outside thickened until the city disappeared completely. The waiter refilled glasses no one would drink. The air smelled of roses and disappointment. Chase finally spoke. Savannah, I should have stayed gone. She laughed once, small, cracked. That would have been a first. Alexandra rose from her chair. I'm leaving. Some ghosts deserve to stay dead. She touched my shoulder lightly on her way out. A gesture of respect, not alliance. Savannah whispered. Why bring her here? So you'd see yourself from the outside, I said. To understand what betrayal looks like when it isn't wearing your face. She flinched. Even truth has manners. Mine had run out. After Alexandra left, the noise returned slowly. Forks, whispers. The hum of the city climbing back through glass. Savannah stared at the untouched souffle. She still loves him, she said. Probably, I answered. But she learned to love herself more. Savannah nodded, eyes distant. I forgot how to do that. It wasn't confession, it was awakening. For the first time in years, I believed her voice. Preston, she murmured, how do we fix something that's already on fire? You don't, I said. You let it burn until you can see the truth through the smoke. And in that silence, something inside both of us began to collapse quietly. Someone's glass slipped, hit marble, and burst into 1,000 bright shards. The sound felt final. Every head turned. Savannah didn't move. I'm sorry, she whispered. To me, to herself, to every version of us that had tried and failed. Chase stood, mumbled an excuse, and walked toward the elevator, leaving only the echo of expensive shoes on stone. I stayed seated. Forgiveness doesn't arrive with applause. It tiptoes in when pride leaves the room. When the doors closed behind him, Savannah finally exhaled. The storm outside broke into rain, washing the city clean. For the first time that night, I tasted peace, not victory, not revenge, just peace. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the penthouse like nothing had happened. The city below had already moved on. New York always does. Savannah sat by the window, coffee untouched, eyes swollen but clear. I didn't sleep, she said. I noticed. Between us, silence worked like therapy. The tree light still blinked, festive, mocking. She traced the rim of her mug. Do you hate me? I thought about it. No, hate's too easy. She looked at me, surprised. I just don't trust the picture we painted, I added. Savannah nodded slowly. Outside, church bells rang for Christmas Day. Forgiveness hadn't arrived yet, but I could hear its footsteps on the stairs. By noon, whispers reached the business pages. Someone from dinner had sold the story. Billionaires make good gossip. Headlines read, Holiday Scandal at the Coles Penthouse. Savannah stayed off her phone. I didn't bother defending us. Truth doesn't need publicists. Chase sent one apology through his lawyer. Alexandra sent flowers, white lilies, simple, precise. When reporters camped outside, Savannah closed the curtains. We're a headline now, she said. I shrugged. We were long before this, now we're just honest ones. The city outside buzzed with judgment, but inside, quiet ruled. Sometimes the loudest redemption is silence. That evening, I walked the apartment alone. Our reflections stared back from every surface. Two ghosts in designer frames. In the dining room, shards from the broken glass still glimmered under candlelight. I crouched, running a finger across the marble. It felt smooth, clean, final. Savannah appeared behind me. You're still here, she said. So are you. She smiled faintly. We could start over. I met her eyes in the glass. Starting over means starting honest. I can do that, she whispered. Maybe she could. Maybe I could too. Outside, the skyline shimmered. Not forgiving, just continuing. That was enough for now. 2 days later, Alexandra called. Her voice held the calm of someone who'd already survived the storm. I wanted to thank you, she said, for letting truth breathe. I didn't plan a spectacle, I told her. No, she said, you planned freedom. She mentioned leaving New York, maybe Paris. Fresh air, she laughed softly. When we hung up, I realized she'd done what I hadn't, walked away completely. Savannah entered then, hair loose, sweater soft. Who was that? A friend who remembered who she is. Savannah looked down. Maybe I need to remember too. Maybe we both did. On New Year's Eve, the city prepared for fireworks. I poured 2 glasses of champagne, handed one to Savannah. She didn't toast, she asked, "Do we still belong together?" The question hovered like smoke. "I don't know," I said. "But I know we're different people than last week." She nodded. That might be the start of something honest. We watched sparks rise from Central Park, reflections dancing on the glass. When midnight came, we didn't kiss. We simply breathed in unison. Sometimes healing sounds exactly like silence shared between 2 people who finally stopped lying. The new year arrived quietly. No resolutions, no promises, just 2 people sharing space and silence. Savannah moved through the penthouse like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. I didn't push her out. I simply stopped filling the air for her. She began spending mornings at a small art studio downtown. Painting, she said, helped her breathe again. Maybe that was good. Maybe we needed distance to remember what we once admired. One evening, she left a note by the coffee pot. "Thank you for not shouting." I smiled when I read it. Some wars end not with treaties, but with quiet surrender. And sometimes that's mercy. Mid-January, I found a letter tucked into my briefcase. Savannah's handwriting, elegant, nervous. Side, no apologies, no defense, just truth. Preston. I forgot what love was supposed to feel like. I chased admiration instead of honesty. I can't undo what I broke, but I can learn from the pieces. It wasn't a plea, it was an acknowledgement. I folded it carefully and kept it in my desk, not my heart. Forgiveness, I was learning, isn't an event, it's erosion. It wears anger down until only understanding remains. When I looked out across the skyline that night, the city looked softer. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was. Late one afternoon, my phone rang. Chase Donovan. His voice carried exhaustion, not arrogance. "I heard Savannah's been doing charity work," he said. "She's learning to use her pain productively." He hesitated. "Tell her I'm sorry. I think she already knows." Silence followed, long and uneven. "Preston," he added quietly, "you could have ruined me that night. Why didn't you?" "Because revenge is just another form of worship," I replied. "And you're not worth mine." He exhaled, defeated. When the call ended, I realized forgiveness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who refuses to stay angry. By February, snow gave way to drizzle. Savannah's studio filled with color. She painted cities, bridges, open windows. Freedom in oils and light. One evening, she invited me to see her work. Her final piece stopped me cold. Our penthouse reflected in glass, half in daylight, half in night. Below it, she'd written, "What remains when the storm leaves?" We stood there quietly, years of noise finally settling. She whispered, "You don't have to stay." "I know," I said, "but maybe I will, just to see what forgiveness looks like in daylight." We left together, not as husband and wife, but as 2 souls who'd finally told the truth. Spring arrived early that year. The city thawed, and so did we. Savannah and I began speaking in simple words again, about groceries, the weather, small things that mattered only because they were honest. One morning, she placed her hand on mine. "Preston," she said softly, "thank you for teaching me that truth doesn't destroy, it rebuilds." I smiled. "Truth just asks to be heard," I replied. "The rest is up to us." When she left for her studio, I lingered at the window. The skyline glimmered, familiar yet new. For the first time in years, New York didn't feel like a stage. It felt like home. Savannah's first solo exhibition opened in late spring. The gallery was minimalist. White walls, soft music, no speeches. Her art spoke for her now. Each painting felt like a confession rendered in color. She greeted guests with grace, but her eyes searched for one face, mine. When I arrived, she exhaled relief. "Did I do all right?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "You told the truth beautifully." A journalist approached to photograph us. We smiled, but this time it wasn't for the camera. It was gratitude, not performance. Later, as I left, I saw her standing before one painting titled "The Forgiven City." It glowed with light breaking through rain. And for the first time, I believed that healing could hang on a wall. Weeks later, Savannah moved into her own apartment overlooking the Hudson. Not far, just far enough for both of us to breathe. I helped her unpack the essentials. Paintbrushes, canvases, the single framed photo she chose to keep. When I turned to leave, she stopped me. Don't you want to see how I live now? I will, I said, but not today. I want you to see it first. Her laughter was soft, unsure, new. As I walked to the elevator, I realized letting go isn't walking away. It's making room for what's next. Back in my car, I glanced up at her balcony. She was already arranging flowers by the window. Life was returning, quietly, beautifully. I found myself at a small cafe near her studio weeks later. Savannah was inside, laughing with a group of young artists. The sunlight caught her hair like gold. I didn't go in. Some stories deserve their distance. Instead, I watched her sip her coffee, smile easily, move freely. When she caught my reflection in the window, she didn't freeze. She just waved, and I waved back, no bitterness, no ache. Just history, beautiful, complicated, closed. The barista asked if I wanted anything. Just the view, I said. Outside, the city pulsed with life again, and I felt strangely proud of both of us. Love hadn't survived, but grace had. Summer came dressed in forgiveness. Savannah's paintings sold well. My company thrived. We didn't return to being lovers, but we found something harder. Peace. Sometimes she'd visit for dinner, bringing laughter instead of tension. We'd talk about art, business, or nothing at all. Once she looked around the penthouse and said, "It feels lighter now." "It's the absence of secrets," I replied. She smiled. "That's your next empire, Preston, peace." When she left that night, I stood at the same window where our marriage had once cracked. The city lights blinked like quiet applause. Not every ending needs grief. Some just need gratitude. On my birthday, I wrote a letter I'd never send. "Preston, you were right to stay calm. The truth doesn't destroy, it redeems." I sealed it, dated it, and placed it in my safe beside old contracts and new beginnings. That night, I cooked myself dinner, opened a good bottle of wine, and watched the skyline glow. The ghosts had left the penthouse. The air felt clean again, and as snow began to fall, unexpected for June, I realized life has seasons that don't follow calendars. Forgiveness had finally found its way home. Not as a gift from Savannah, but as something I gave myself. Life began showing color again. I hadn't noticed how gray my days had become until one morning. Sunlight painted the penthouse in gold. I brewed coffee, opened the balcony doors, and felt air that didn't weigh anything. That was new. Savannah sent a photo of her new series. Bright skies, open roads, not a tear in sight. Her caption read, "Freedom looks better in color." I smiled. In the city, laughter returned like background music. Beatings no longer felt like distractions from pain. I was present, alive, unarmored. That night, I looked at the skyline and whispered, "We made it through." Forgiveness had repainted everything. Even memory had softened. The world, once metallic and cold, now shimmered again. I realized the miracle wasn't surviving heartbreak. It was learning to see beauty through it. On a rainy Thursday, I walked into an art gallery in Soho. It wasn't Savannah's show, but her influence lingered. Color, light, courage. A woman beside me studied a painting titled Reconstruction. "It feels like healing," she said. Her voice was warm, steady. Her name was Clara Monroe, a writer from Boston visiting for inspiration. We talked until the rain stopped. No sparks, no rush, just recognition. Two people who'd known loss but still believed in color. When we parted, she smiled. "Maybe healing is contagious." I laughed quietly. Outside, puddles reflected streetlights, turning gray asphalt into gold. For the first time, I didn't think of Savannah. I just thought of possibility. Love might visit again one day, not as thunder, but as rain. Soft, cleansing, familiar. Clara and I began exchanging letters, real ones, not digital noise. She wrote about writing, travel, and the little things grief teaches patience for. Coffee steam, sunrise, silence. Her words felt like sunlight through blinds. I replied in honesty, not performance. She said my letters read like confessionals, but hopeful ones. I smiled when I read that. We met again that autumn. She handed me a first edition of a book titled Beginnings. Inside, she'd written, "To Preston." Proof that endings are just misunderstood beginnings. Her eyes held kindness, not rescue. For once, I didn't need saving. We walked under falling leaves, two strangers rewritten by time. Sometimes the heart doesn't need fireworks. It just needs someone who listens between silences. Winter returned, gentler this time. Snow drifted outside like whispered apologies. I lit a fire, poured wine, and listened to the quiet, the kind that doesn't ache anymore. Savannah called that night. Her voice was peaceful, free of tension. "I heard about Clara," she said softly. "She seems wonderful." "She is," I replied. "Good," she said. "You deserve warmth, Preston." We spoke for a few minutes, like old friends finally done performing. When we hung up, I stared at the city below. Forgiveness had aged into friendship. It no longer needed explanations, it simply existed. That night, I slept without dreams. Not because I was empty, but because peace leaves no questions unanswered. A year later, I stood again on my balcony. The skyline hadn't changed, but I had. Every window reflected resilience. Every street hummed second chances. Savannah's art now hung in a museum. Clara's latest book mentioned a man who taught her stillness. Both women had become reminders, not regrets. I raised a glass of champagne to the city. "To truth," I whispered. It shimmered back at me through the skyline. The air was cool, filled with the hum of life moving forward. Love wasn't a destination, it was evolution. Every heartbreak had been a chapter in a longer story of becoming. As I watched dawn color the glass towers gold, I realized something profound. Forgiveness isn't about who hurt you. It's about freeing yourself to see beauty again. And finally, I could see everything clearly. The museum invited me to Savannah's new exhibit titled Echoes of Light. Her art had evolved, less about pain, more about truth. When I walked through the halls, I saw our story translated into color. One canvas stopped me, our old dining room, reimagined with open windows and brighter hues. Below it read, "Forgiveness lives here." Savannah noticed me from across the crowd. We didn't speak. We simply exchanged a smile that held a decade of history. It wasn't longing, it was acknowledgement. Some relationships end, others transform. Ours had become art. Clara joined me later, slipping her hand into mine. She whispered, "It's beautiful." I nodded. It always was, just misunderstood. Walking out, I realized the past hadn't vanished. It had matured into grace, displayed under perfect lighting for anyone willing to understand. One morning, Clara left a letter on my desk beside coffee and sunlight. "Preston, thank you for teaching me quiet doesn't mean empty. You made me believe that love after loss isn't replacement, it's rebirth." Her words felt like home. She'd gone to Vermont for a writer's retreat, promising to return when the snow melted. Her absence didn't ache, it breathed. I reread her letter every morning before work. The city still hummed, but I'd learned to listen between the noise. When I looked at her handwriting, I saw something rare, truth written without fear. Savannah once painted feelings, Clara wrote them. Both left color in their wake. I realized then, the heart doesn't forget. It simply grows larger to fit what it's learned. And mine had learned plenty. That Christmas I hosted dinner again. Not grand, not gilded, just 10 people I trusted. No photographers, no headlines. Just laughter echoing off marble that had heard too many tears. I placed 12 settings again, like the old days. But this time, every chair was filled with honesty. Clara toasted to the quiet victories of forgiveness. Savannah sent flowers, white tulips with a note, proud of who we became. As candles flickered, I thought of that first dinner. The lies, the glass shattering. And I smiled, because now everything broken had found its shape again. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, forgiving, familiar. It didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning rewritten. A year later, Clara and I attended a charity gala in Manhattan. Reporters called me the man who turned heartbreak into philanthropy. Maybe that was true. I'd started a foundation for mental health and creative industries. Savannah's paintings headlined our first event. When I took the stage, I didn't speak about betrayal or pain. I spoke about rebuilding. The world doesn't need more perfect people, I told the crowd. It needs healed ones. Clara smiled from the front row. Savannah clapped quietly in the back. That applause, soft, genuine, was the sound of closure. Afterward, someone asked how I'd survived my scandal. I said, by remembering that truth, no matter how painful, is always a gift. And that night, Manhattan glittered brighter than ever. The foundation grew faster than I expected. Clara's writing became its voice. Savannah's art, its heart. We'd turned old wounds into blueprints for others to heal. During one interview, a journalist asked, "Do you believe in second chances?" I said, "No, I believe in better ones." Years ago, I thought success meant skyscrapers and boardrooms. Now it lived in letters from people we'd helped, each one a light against the dark. One afternoon, I walked through our office, watching laughter fill spaces once built on ambition. It felt sacred. I stopped by a window overlooking the city and whispered, "We did it." Not perfectly, but honestly. And maybe that's the real legacy. Learning that the truth, when handled with grace, outlasts everything else. One afternoon, a young architect named Eli joined my company. Ambitious, restless, full of the same fire I once mistook for purpose. He asked endless questions about power, balance, and success. I saw myself in him, brilliant but blind to what truly matters. One evening he said, "Mr. Cole, how do you stay so calm?" I smiled. "Experience teaches you that control isn't power, peace is." He nodded, half understanding. Years ago, I would have given him strategies. Now I offered silence. Before leaving that day, he said, "I hope I build something lasting." I looked out at the skyline. "Build truth," I told him. "It survives everything else." Watching him go reminded me that wisdom isn't taught. It's lived. And perhaps legacy isn't the buildings we design, but the people who learn to stand taller because of us. That spring, Clara invited me to Vermont. The mountains were quiet, wrapped in mist, like the world was whispering its secrets. Her cabin overlooked a lake so still it reflected eternity. We spent mornings writing and evenings by the fire, reading aloud what life had taught us. Clara said, "I used to think healing was forgetting." I replied, "No, it's remembering without pain." Each day, silence grew softer, lighter. We didn't need to fill it. The peace between us was conversation enough. One night she asked, "Do you ever miss who you were?" I smiled, "Only when I forget who I've become." When I left Vermont, I carried no souvenirs, just calm. The kind that doesn't vanish when you return to the city. Back in New York, a journalist asked for an interview. She wanted to talk about redemption, not wealth. Her first question was simple. "Do you believe people truly change?" I paused. "Yes, if they're brave enough to see themselves clearly." She nodded, pen hovering midair. "And forgiveness?" "It's not approval," I said. "It's release." When the article came out, the headline read, "The Billionaire Who Chose Grace Over Revenge." I laughed softly when I saw it. That's not who I became. It's who I finally remembered I was. Readers wrote letters. One woman said my story helped her stay instead of run. Another said it gave her courage to leave. Both called it freedom. That, I realized, was the real interview. Words echoing where cameras can't reach. December arrived again, crisp and golden. Snow gathered on the terrace, a quiet reminder of beginnings. This time, the invitation came from Savannah. She wanted Clara and me to attend her holiday dinner. Clara asked, "Are you ready for that?" "Yes," I said. It's time we all shared the same peace. The evening was soft, lit by laughter instead of tension. Savannah looked radiant, lighter than I remembered. During dessert, she raised her glass. "To Grace," she said, "and to the people who taught me its meaning." We toasted, not to erase the past, but to honor how it shaped us. Outside, snow fell exactly as it had years ago. But this time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. After dinner, Clara and I walked through Central Park. The city glowed, gentle, familiar, forgiving. She slipped her arm through mine. "Strange," she said. "The same streets, yet everything feels new." "It's us," I answered. We finally caught up to peace. We stopped by the lake, its surface mirroring the lights of passing carriages. I thought of Savannah, of Chase, of every broken truth that had led me here. None of it hurt anymore. It simply belonged to the story that built me. Clara whispered, "Do you ever wonder what's next?" I smiled. "No, I've learned to let life surprise me." When we reached home, the city clock struck midnight. No ghosts, no regrets, just gratitude walking beside me. And for once, that was more than enough. Our foundation's 3rd anniversary filled the ballroom with light. Musicians played softly, laughter replaced gossip. People gathered not to flaunt wealth, but to celebrate healing. Savannah's new collection sold out within hours. Clara presented awards to young artists whose work carried honesty in every stroke. When it was my turn to speak, I looked at them. Dreamers, survivors, believers. Every empire built on truth, I said, will never need rebuilding. The room grew still, reverent. Afterward, a teenager approached. "You changed my life," she said. "You made me believe mistakes don't end stories." I smiled. They begin better ones. As the night ended, I watched her dance among laughter and color. And I thought, maybe legacy isn't what you leave behind. Maybe it's who learns to smile because you did. Savannah invited me to her new studio, an open loft in Brooklyn, all sunlight and brushes. Her latest work stunned me. Portraits of faces half in shadow, half in gold. "Every person is both," she said, light and lesson. She handed me one painting, a familiar figure standing before a skyline. "You," she said simply. I laughed softly. "I'm honored." "It's my thank you," she replied, "for not breaking me when you could have." The air between us no longer carried tension, only understanding. We stood quietly watching the paint dry, symbolic, final, sacred. Before leaving, I told her, "You made peace visible." She smiled, "And you made it possible." When I stepped outside, sunlight washed over me like absolution. Some goodbyes are too gentle to hurt. Clara's new book, The Weight of Light, launched that summer. It told stories of people who'd turned pain into art, including ours. Fictionalized but true. She dedicated it to those who learned that love begins where pride ends. At the reading, she spoke with calm brilliance. When she read the final line, the audience applauded quietly, the way people do when they feel seen. Later, she asked, "Was it too personal?" "No," I said, "it was finally honest." A reporter asked me how it felt to be a muse. "I'm not one," I smiled, "I'm a witness." That night, as we walked home beneath city lights, Clara whispered, "This book is my forgiveness letter to the world." And I realized every artist in their own way writes one. Autumn brought another storm, the kind that shakes the city but not the soul. Rain streaked the windows, thunder hummed like memory. Clara stood at the balcony, hair loose, eyes thoughtful. "Funny," she said, "how storms used to frighten me." "They used to define me," I replied. We watched lightning paint the skyline white, brief and magnificent. In that flash, I saw everything I'd survived: love, betrayal, redemption. All of it is necessary. All of it is forgiven. She turned to me. "Do you ever regret anything?" "Only the times I waited for perfect instead of grateful." The rain softened. We stood there, unafraid, drenched in calm. I finally understood. Storms don't destroy, they cleanse. And when they pass, they leave the air pure enough to breathe new beginnings. Months later, Eli visited my office again. He'd designed his first building, bold, honest, imperfect. He said, "It's not perfect, but it's mine." I smiled. "Then it's enough." He asked, "What's the most important thing you've learned?" I leaned back, remembering every scar-turned lesson. That truth grows roots. Even when buried, it finds sunlight. He nodded slowly, eyes full of youth and hope. As he left, I felt a strange peace settle in, the kind that comes when life circles back, complete. Outside, construction cranes pierce the skyline like promises still in progress. Maybe every generation builds what the last only imagined. And maybe my part was simply to teach them that strength without grace collapses. Truth, however, stands forever. I woke before sunrise, the city still half asleep. The skyline shimmered in gray and gold, a reminder that beauty often hides between opposites. Clara stirred beside me, breathing softly. Peace has a sound, it's this. I brewed coffee, the same ritual every morning, but today the aroma felt like a memory, familiar and comforting. In the distance, construction cranes stretched upward, chasing light. I smiled, progress never stops. Clara joined me at the window. "Thinking again," she teased. "Always," I said. "It's how I keep remembering what matters." She rested her head on my shoulder. "Then don't think too long," she whispered. Outside, the city exhaled into daybreak. For the first time in years, I didn't feel older. I just felt present. Sometimes peace isn't loud. It's the quiet acceptance that you finally arrived. Our foundation's mailbox overflowed with letters. Stories of people who'd read Clara's book, seen Savannah's art, or heard me speak. They wrote of heartbreak, resilience, faith. Every letter is a mirror of someone learning to breathe again. One read, "Your story taught me forgiveness isn't weakness, it's power reclaimed." I kept that one. Not for pride, but gratitude. Each weekend, Clara and I read them aloud over breakfast. We cried, we smiled, sometimes both at once. The city outside never slowed, but we had learned how to. One morning, I told Clara, "We started a ripple." She smiled, "And now it's an ocean." The letters reminded me that truth travels further than fame ever could. When you share your scars, someone else finds healing in the reflection. That, I decided, was the quiet purpose of survival. "Savannah called that spring?" "Preston," she said, "I'm getting married." Her voice trembled, not from guilt, but from joy. "I wanted you to hear it from me." For a moment, silence filled the line. Warm, heavy, sincere. "I'm happy for you," I said. And I meant it. She thanked me, her laughter soft like closure. Thank you for teaching me love doesn't need to end to change. After the call, I stood by the window, watching sunlight scatter across the Hudson. I realized every chapter of my life had found its ending, gracefully written by time. Clara hugged me when I told her. She deserves that peace, Clara said. So do we, I replied. The world had finally balanced itself. No winners, no losers, just survivors who learned to love again, properly this time. Clara and I bought a cottage upstate that summer. Wildflowers replaced skyscrapers. Birds sang where sirens once echoed. Peace smelled like lavender and morning dew. I built a small garden, hands steady, unhurried. Clara painted from the porch, her laughter blending with the wind. We didn't need words to fill the air, presence was enough. Neighbors often waved, curious about the couple who looked like they'd outrun chaos. We had and we'd done it together. One afternoon, Clara said, "You never told me your favorite flower." "Daisies," I smiled. "They always face the sun." "Just like you," she said. We spent the evening watering roots and memories. As twilight settled, I realized peace wasn't the absence of storms. It was learning to garden after them. And every petal felt like proof that forgiveness blooms if you let it. Before autumn, I wrote Savannah one final letter. "Dear Savannah, life has been kind. I hope yours has too. I've learned that love in all its forms is never wasted. It simply changes shape. Thank you for teaching me honesty's worth. I wish you every good thing." I signed it, sealed it, never mailed it. Some letters are written for peace, not postage. Clara found it weeks later and smiled. "You always finish your stories," she said. "I try," I answered. We burned the letter that night, watching the flames curl it into light. The ashes rose like blessings disappearing into stars. "Closure," Clara whispered. "Freedom," I said. And for the first time, both words meant the same thing. A university invited me to speak on integrity and leadership. The hall was filled with young faces hungry for success, unaware of its cost. I began, "Power without empathy is architecture without foundation. It collapses." They leaned in. I told them about failure, about loss, about finding peace after ruin. One student asked, "How do you keep faith after betrayal?" "By remembering," I said, "that pain is a teacher, not a destination." Applause came slow, honest. Afterward, a girl whispered, "My parents divorced this year. You made it sound survivable." I smiled gently. It is. Leaving the campus, I realized my story had stopped being mine. It had become a map for others. That was legacy. Not what you build, but what outlives your name. The small town near our cottage hosted a harvest festival. Stalls lined the street with apple pies, laughter, and brass band music echoing through crisp air. Clara and I walked hand in hand, blending in easily. A child offered us caramel apples. Her mother said, "You two look peaceful." Clara smiled. We worked for it. We sat on a bench under falling leaves, watching neighbors dance. "This feels like something we used to dream of," Clara whispered. "It's better," I said. "Dreams fade, this stayed." A photographer took our picture. Weeks later, it appeared in the local paper. Two strangers who looked like forever. We laughed when we saw it. Peace photographs well, it glows without trying. And for once, we didn't need to explain who we used to be. At the Foundation's anniversary, our team buried a time capsule. Inside went letters from survivors, sketches, and a small plaque reading "Truth Endures." Someone insisted I include something personal. I placed my wedding band inside. It wasn't regret, it was remembrance. Love had built me, broken me, rebuilt me again. It deserved a resting place among lessons. When the capsule was sealed, Clara squeezed my hand. "You're sure?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "The past deserves its peace." As the earth covered it, I felt lighter, like I'd finally put down the weight I didn't realize I was still carrying. Legacy wasn't holding on. It was knowing when to let go. We bought a small piano for the cottage. Clara used to play softly at night, melodies that sounded like moonlight. One evening, she taught me a simple song. "Left hand forgiveness," she said. "Right hand gratitude. Together, peace." I laughed, clumsy at first, but soon the notes blended. Our duet filled the room like prayer. Afterward, she said, "It's strange how quiet used to scare you." "It still does," I smiled. "But now I know it's not emptiness, it's space for grace." The piano stayed slightly out of tune, and I never fixed it. Its imperfections reminded me that harmony doesn't mean perfection. It means coexistence. Every time we played, I thought, this is what healing sounds like. One morning, Clara left a note by my coffee mug. Gone for a walk by the lake. Don't follow too soon. Watch the sunrise first. So I did. The horizon glowed peach and gold, soft as forgiveness. Birds carved silver lines through the mist. For a moment, I felt time pause, contentment suspended in air. When she returned, her cheeks were pink, her smile unshakable. I wrote a poem, she said, about beginnings disguised as endings. Read it to me, I asked. She did, and when she finished, I whispered, that's our story. She nodded. I know. Outside, the world kept waking up. And I realized life doesn't end in chapters. It continues in echoes, soft and eternal. I woke to sunlight spilling across the kitchen counter and a folded note beside my mug. Went for a walk by the lake. Don't rush, watch the sunrise first. So I sat by the window, coffee in hand, and did exactly that. The horizon blushed gold. The water mirrored the light, and the world seemed to breathe in unison. I thought about everything that had led here. Storms, endings, forgiveness, and how peace always arrives quietly. When Clara returned, cheeks flushed from the cold, she held a notebook. I wrote something, she said. A poem about how every ending is just a beginning, learning to speak softly. She read it aloud, voice steady as dawn. When she finished, I whispered, that's us. She smiled. No, she said, that's life. Outside, the day began again, simple, radiant, and whole. Months later, Clara and I returned to Manhattan. The skyline greeted us like an old friend, familiar, wiser, no longer intimidating. We visited the foundation office. New faces filled the halls, bright with hope. A young volunteer said, your story started all this. I smiled. No, it just reminded people that pain can build, not only break. Walking through Central Park afterward, I pointed toward our old penthouse. Clara asked, does it still hurt to see it? No, I said, it's just a place where truth began. We sat on a bench beneath budding trees. The city hummed softly, not with noise, but with memory. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't about forgetting the past. It's about living comfortably beside it. And finally, I could. We spent a weekend by the Hudson, where the water whispered against the docks. Clara sketched while I read her drafts aloud. Between us, silence carried everything words couldn't. She looked up once and said, you've become gentler. I stopped fighting the current, I replied. The river doesn't resist, it just keeps moving. That afternoon, I saw my reflection ripple beside hers. For years, I'd searched for meaning in skyscrapers. Now I found it in moving water. When the sun dipped, Clara leaned on my shoulder. We finally learned how to float, she said. I smiled. Peace didn't roar, it murmured, steady as the tide. And in that rhythm, I realized calm isn't fragile. It's freedom remembering its strength. Eli called one evening, excitement spilling through the phone. Mr. Cole, the building's done. It's exactly how we imagined. He sent a photo, tall, glass, breathtaking. At its base, etched in bronze, were 4 words, truth builds what lasts. I felt my throat tighten. He'd listened. When we visited, the lobby shone with sunlight and open space. No grandeur, just grace. Eli grinned. You taught me design without ego. I laughed. You taught me legacy without control. Outside, children played near the fountains. Their laughter echoed against the marble walls. I thought, this is what endurance looks like. Not steel, not glass, but principles turned to architecture. As we drove home, Clara whispered, he built your heart into the skyline. And I realized, yes, he had. The final snow of the year fell softly over the cottage. We watched from the porch, wrapped in blankets, the world painted white again. Snowflakes landed on Clara's hair, catching the firelight. This feels familiar, she said. It should, I smiled. We began in winter. We sat in silence, listening to the hush. No past ghosts, no unfinished stories, just gratitude. She reached for my hand. Do you ever miss who you were? Sometimes, I said, but I wouldn't trade him for who I became. The fire crackled. The air smelled like pine, and peace felt infinite. Outside, the snow erased footsteps, leaving everything new again. And for the first time, the season didn't feel cold. It felt kind. At dawn, I walked alone to the lake. The water shimmered gold, the world silent except for birds greeting morning. I thought of every person who'd walked through my life, each one a teacher in disguise. Clara joined me quietly, resting her head on my shoulder. You're thinking again, she teased. About everything, I admitted. and how every truth we faced led us here. She smiled. Then you've built your masterpiece. Maybe she was right. The buildings, the art, the foundation, they'd fade someday. But what we built in each other, that would echo long after. As the sunlight touched the water, I whispered, "Let it stay." Not the moment, its meaning. And somewhere between reflection and reality, I knew it would. Autumn returned, softer than before. Leaves drifted through the garden like slow confessions. Clara painted on the porch, her brush moving with calm certainty. I read beside her, every page turning like a heartbeat. "Time moves differently now," she said. "Because we stopped chasing it," I replied. She laughed. "Maybe it's chasing us." We spent afternoons walking the path around the lake. Each reflection on the water felt like a memory gently forgiven. I realized I no longer measured life in achievements or years, but in moments of stillness that felt infinite. At sunset, the horizon glowed copper. Clara whispered, "We made it through everything." "Yes," I said, "and we didn't just survive, we transformed." The wind carried our laughter across the trees. Even time paused to listen. One morning, Clara found an old photograph tucked inside a book. It was from our first gala, the night our story quietly began. She smiled. "Look at us, so formal, so unaware." I studied the picture. My younger self looked powerful, unshakable. But now, I saw the cracks hidden beneath the polish. "Would you change anything?" she asked. "No," I said, "because every mistake became the right direction." She placed the photo on the mantel, beside her painting of the skyline at dawn. Two versions of us side by side, past ambition and present peace. Later, the sunlight hit the frame perfectly, blurring the lines between who we were and who we'd become. I whispered, "We finally look real." And Clara replied, "We finally are." That winter, our closest friends joined us for dinner at the cottage. Savannah attended too, with her husband, kind, quiet, content. We all laughed like people who'd made peace with life's imperfections. When dessert came, Savannah raised her glass. To journeys that didn't go as planned, but led us home anyway. We toasted, smiles warm as candlelight. Eli shared news of his next project. Clara talked about her new book. The room hummed with love, not romance, but the steady pulse of connection. I looked around the table, different faces, same truth. Everyone there had survived themselves. And maybe that's the greatest miracle of all. Outside, snow began to fall again. Inside, the past finally rested. A journalist later asked if I'd ever write my story. I told him it was already written, just not by me. Savannah painted it, Clara chronicled it, Eli built it. It lived in every person touched by its lessons. He pressed, "But don't you want your own version?" I smiled. "I already have it. It's the life I'm living now." Sometimes silence holds more truth than chapters ever could, so I let the quiet speak. When I returned home, Clara was reading by the fire. She looked up and asked, "Did you tell them everything?" "Just enough," I said, "because some stories aren't meant to end. They're meant to continue in the hearts of those who listen." And I had found peace in being heard. One clear night, I stepped outside alone. The stars hung low, bright enough to remember by. I thought of my parents, of Savannah, of every version of me that had loved imperfectly but sincerely. The air was cold, but my heart felt warm. Clara joined me quietly, slipping her hand into mine. We looked up together. "I think the sky's applauding us," she said. "Maybe," I smiled, "or reminding us to keep shining." Every light above us told its own story. Burned, faded, yet visible still. That's what truth does, it endures. We stood there until dawn's first color brushed the clouds. When the sun finally rose, I whispered, "It's beautiful." Clara nodded. "So are we," she said. And for the first time, I believed her completely. One morning, I began writing again. Not to the past, but to whoever might one day need my words. Dear reader, you will break, you will heal. Both are sacred. Never mistake silence for emptiness. It's just peace learning to speak. I sealed the letter in an envelope labeled "For Tomorrow" and left it with the Foundation archives. Maybe one day someone would open it and find hope waiting. When Clara read it, she smiled. "You've turned life into literature," she said. I shook my head. "No, just truth written softly." Later, watching her sketch by the window, I realized that maybe stories never end. They evolve through others. And that's how eternity really works. The morning came golden and slow. The lake outside shimmered like glass. Even the air felt grateful. Clara brewed coffee, humming a tune I'd never heard. It sounded like closure disguised as melody. We sat by the window in silence, watching mist lift from the water. "This might be my favorite morning," she said. "Because it's perfect?" I asked. "No," she smiled, "because it's real." I looked at her, sunlight haloing her hair, and thought, this is what peace looks like when it grows old enough to stop proving itself. When she leaned her head on my shoulder, I whispered, "We did it." She nodded all the way. Outside, the first bird of spring sang early. Inside, my heart answered quietly. Years later, people still visit the foundation, stand by the lake, and read the plaque we left behind. It says, "Truth builds what time cannot erase." Sometimes I imagine them wondering who we were. 2 names carved into memory, 1 story written across seasons. Maybe they'll never know the details, only the feeling. That's enough. Because stories don't belong to their characters. They belong to everyone who finds themselves inside them. If anyone listening remembers one thing, let it be this. Love, forgiveness, and truth, these are the real empires. They don't collapse, they evolve. As evening falls and stars wake again, I know our story hasn't ended. It's simply changed shape, echoing quietly through hearts that need to believe in peace after pain. And somewhere in that echo, we're still alive.